Parshas Cheshvan, Chodesh Cheshvan, Parshas Noach. We are in the middle of a turbulent time in Israel now. A lot of us women here have husbands and sons fighting on the front lines for the safety of Am Yisrael, and we've all been impacted by the war. We even have a few refugees from Ashkelon who joined us for this shiur, who happened to be at Siftach. So it's a really special time and a very important time to gather together and draw Chizuk from each other and strengthen each other through learning Torah, which is literally the theme of this shiur. So the shiur today is sponsored by a couple of people. I just sent it out this morning. I didn't think we were getting any sponsors, and 3 people offered to sponsor. So Michelle Mahler sponsored the shiur in the merit of the safe return of all the Chayalim and the hostages and Am Yisrael. And Sheila Semanowitz sponsored the shiur for her mother's yahrzeit, who's today. So the shiur should be L'ila Nishmas Chaska Bas Aaron Yaakov. And we're also keeping in mind our really good friend who comes to the shiur often for Shalema, for Netza Yocheved Bas Kato. And anyone who's sitting here who has a child, a husband, a family member who's fighting, we're going to do the shiur in the merit of their safe and speedy return, full in body, soul, and spirit. So today's shiur, it's going to be mostly on Parshas Noach, but because we are on the first day or second day, thank you so much, of Chodesh Cheshvan, let's talk a little bit about the month. And because I wore the marble earrings. Oh, my husband bought watercolor papers, guys. He's the best. And he brought them. Okay, so now we could do real, this was practice. Now you could put the watercolor. Let me just do a spin around to show how many amazing women came out during war and uncertainty to join the shiur. Hey, Karen. Hey, Daniela. Hi, Kazia. Sorry. Orly, even though her husband's away and she's left with like 8 children, right? 7 children. And Chaya, whose husband is fighting, and Miriam, who came all the way from Kiryat Arba, even though her husband is, what's wrong with this? Oh, there you go. Is literally by the border. Sarah Rosen, whose son is 5 kilometers from the south border. So it's a turbulent time. So I'm trying to go on to today's shiur. Nice to meet you. Come again. Okay, so here's really good quality watercolor paper. So you could take a whole one, or you could make it small if you want a smaller paper in half, and make a rainbow, because we need some more color and bright in the world. There's so much darkness, there's so much ugliness, and the main thing that we could do is, instead of just fighting the darkness, because there's so much darkness, fighting it will take forever, we can focus on adding more light. And we know that we learned from Chassidut that in a room full of darkness, you're like, how can I overpower so much darkness? But we forget sometimes that all it takes to banish a room full of darkness is to add 1 candle, and suddenly the darkness disappears by itself. But if we focus on getting rid of the darkness, it's endless, because the darkness out there is so much. But if we can just focus on lighting a candle, suddenly there's so much darkness disappears on its own. So if we can focus on making rainbows and beautiful things metaphorically in our lives, on doing one small thing to reach out to somebody, even though so many of us are overwhelmed and are not necessarily able to start a whole campaign for Chayalim, but we could reach out to one person to let them know we're thinking about them, bring a coffee for somebody, for somebody whose husband. So sorry for the huge delay in starting the shiur. Let's get right into it. Chodesh Cheshvan is it's a very unusual month. So we have a shiur. Usually we focus on the energy of every month according to Sefer Yetzirah. And we tap into the shifting energies of every month. And Cheshvan is a very unusual month in that it's like the only month on the Jewish calendar, literally the only month that has no Chag, not even a fast day. There's not even a Tisha B'Av in this month. So it's a very empty month. It's like a month of rain. We're coming after Tishrei, where there's Chagim every other day, and then suddenly we have this month of nothing. And some of us welcome the peace, but also for some people there's a little bit of depression that comes in. It starts raining. We stop hanging out so much with people. So Cheshvan is a very interesting month. We also learn that every month we can learn from the astrological sign that influences the month, and from the energy. Sefer Yetzirah tells us that every month we have a physical, bodily sense in that month that we could work on, that we can tap into and grow through way more than any other month. And the bodily sense in Cheshvan, does anyone know what it is our sense of smelling and breathing, which is so appropriate. The astrological sign of the month is the Scorpion, or the Scorpio. There's a few other things, but we're not going to talk about them today. Also, historically in Cheshvan, even though there's no Chagim, the only thing that happens on the Jewish calendar that's momentous is on the 7th Cheshvan, we begin to pray for rain. On the 17th of Cheshvan, the flood began, the Mabul that's in this week's Parsha began. And on the 27th of Cheshvan, the following year, the flood ended. That's pretty much it. We also have Chaf Cheshvan, which I think is the Rambam's Shlomo finished building the base of Mikdash, but they pushed off the Chanukas of Mishkan until Mikdash until Kislev, because I was in Kislev. Right? The letter of the Aleph base that Hashem sends the energy to the month, the flow of energy to the month, is through the letter Nun. Yeah, pretty much. So I'll focus just a little bit on the sense of smelling. Smelling is our most ruchani sense. Even though there's more than 5 bodily senses, we have many others. And next month we're going to focus on dreaming, on our sense of sleeping and dreaming in our body. But this month in Cheshvan is the sense of smell, and it's about smell is the highest of the 5 of all of our senses, because it's considered the most ruchnius because it connects directly to our neshama. And we even see in last week's parsha that when we came to the Eitz Hadas, smell was the only 5 of the 5 senses that wasn't contaminated and perverted by the sin of the Chet Eitz Hadas. It says that Chava saw the tree with her eyes and she desired it. It says that she heard the snake talking to her and telling her about the tree. She touched it and she tasted it. But the only thing she didn't do is smell it. Her sense of smell wasn't impacted by the sin. And we also learned that when after Shabbos passes away, we smell besamim because when we smell besamim, it comforts. It's the only sense that can reach our neshama. The only bodily sense that can comfort our neshama is the sense of smell. When we have a smell, it gives our neshama a sense of comfort. So smell is the most connected to our soul. Even the word to breathe, reach, even the word to smell, reach, comes from ruach, which is our spirit. So it's a very spiritual sense. The reach and the ruach are very connected. Our sense of smell is connected to neshima, to breathing, to ruach, to breath that comes through our nose. And we know that the deepest way to breathe and to calm down during these turbulent and darker times is through our breath. That through our breath we connect to our neshama. So we see that even though everyone now, all the psychologists are telling us to breathe more, to connect to our breathing more, in the Torah from the beginning we see that our breath, our reach, as our ruach is connected to our neshama the most, and it's going to calm our neshama down. It's going to connect us to our core, because when things are going crazy around us and there's chaos in the home and outside the home and in our minds and we're spiraling, what we can do is connect to our neshama, which is always rooted and grounded, and we can ground to our neshama specifically through neshima, because neshima is connected to our neshama and reach is connected to our ruach. So this month more than ever we have the opportunity to ground ourselves to our neshama, to root ourselves to what is constant. The fact that my neshama is within me, that it's constantly there, I can ground myself through my reach. So let me take a minute now. I'll connect it to like something cute I thought about, that we're going to talk a lot today about Boel HaTeva, about coming to the Teva. And one thing that a Teva means a few things. A Teva means ark, like the ark that saves us. A Teva also means the word, a Teva, the words of Torah, which is what we're going to talk about today. But the Baal Shem Tov says that we should look at it as a spiritual message to come to the Teva, to the words of the Torah, to look into the inner words and ground ourselves from the mabul, the floods around us, through going into the Teva. And going into the Teva to escape from the raging floods. The Rebbe teaches a lot about the floods of this month and the floods of Noach, that everything in Torah, Lalt Rebbe says, is a message for us to live through. But we don't have a flood now, so how do we learn from Parshat Noach, right? It's a cool, fun story to tell our kids, but what's the message we take? So the Rebbe says that in actuality, there's a lot of layers to the Torah. So on the one layer, it's the story of what happened to Noach, but on another layer, it's a story that happens to all of us constantly. And especially during this time, that all of us are experiencing floods in our life. And the Rebbe says, and every one of us have a different type of flood that's overwhelming us, that's just flooding us, so we feel like we're drowning in something. For many people, it's drowning in the worries of parnasa. That's like one of the main things that many people share in common. It's drowning in tirdos and worrying about making a living and just living in this world and being able to afford a home, being able to worry about how we're going to get through and have the things that we need financially and physically. For many of us, it's health, unfortunately. For some people, we're drowning with worries about health, with children, with different things. But everyone has their own worries that plague them. It might be mental health inside. It might be spiritual health, right? It might be our children that we're worried for. Every one of us are drowned, and we all receive a mabul. And we're going to learn throughout this year that the mabul, although on a surface level it's a negative thing, it's a destruction, the source of the mabul comes from chesed of Hashem. Water comes from the chesed of Hashem, and the real reason for the mabul and its shoresh was for chesed, for Hashem to bring us close, to purify us in a very loving and cleansing way. But the way it comes down, often the way we feel it is not in that way. The way we feel it is that we're drowning and we're being attacked by torrents of waters that are coming to destroy us. And one thing that Hashem tells Noach, how could you save yourself from the mabul? And all of us, when we have to take a message from Noach, we say, how can we save ourselves or protect ourselves from the floods that surround us, that are threatening to drown us, from the floods of things that are crashing to us from below, from Gashmios, and from above, from Ruchnios. There's so many floods that are coming. The waters are coming from above and below. How do we help ourselves? So we have to learn from Noach, where Hashem told Noach, what do? You go into the Teva. So we learn from this so many ideas. The first that we'll talk about now that I thought, this is just my thought, so take it or leave it. I thought that a teva also means a box, right? Like the teva that Moshe was in was like a box, or the teva that we put like the wife box, that our Avos had their boxes, right? That was called a teva, right? So teva is a box, and there's a type of breath work that's very common. They actually teach it to firefighters and people in the army to ground themselves when they're literally flooded in war. How are they supposed to sleep at night? People in the army, they're supposed to fall asleep at night when they're in the middle of a war, but they have to sleep or else they can't fight normally. So they teach them one of the like life-saving breath work that I actually do when I'm in like a panic, when I'm having a panic attack. It's called box breathing. So for me, I thought like Bola Teva is like come into your breath, come into your box of like security and secure yourself with this like breath work. So for me, that's what I imagine it. I'm like, if I'm panicking and I'm like, how can I go into my teva? So box breathing is like this. So you could breathe with me. So it's an inhale, count to 5, let's say, and then a hold for 5, then an exhale for 5, and then a hold for 5. And it can literally stop a panic attack. So it can help a firefighter be calm and ground you to your, and so let's do it together. So in for 5, hold for 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, out for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then hold for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now in for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out for 5, 3, 4, 5, hold for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get used to it, and you could change the numbers as much as you want. One thing that's really helpful is to lengthen the exhale. The exhale should always be longer than the inhale, or the pause after the exhale should be longer, because it's like an inhaler effect. When you have, and you breathe in as soon as you have the urge to breathe in after you exhale. You shouldn't exhale too long that you pass out, but exhale until the urge to breathe in comes in. So for me, like Bo'al HaTeva is coming into our neshama, going into that box. And yesterday, 2 days ago, the Kesselmans from Efrat sponsored like a coffee at Papa Melech and pastries for wives of husbands who are in the army. And my husband and I were helping babysit the 50 kids that came so the wives could have coffee. Giselle was there. And I was speaking to one woman whose 5 boys wouldn't leave her, and her husband's on the front lines, and she has 5 boys clinging to her. And then I think about it, I just cry. And I asked her how she sleeps at night. I'm like, are you getting any sleep at night? Because your husband's on the front line, you have 5 boys at home. I told her, I have 3 boys, I have my husband's help, and I'm losing my mind. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you're sleeping at night, like feeling secure. So she told me something that was so inspiring to me that I think about all the time now. She said that before she goes to sleep, when she's lying alone, whenever she's afraid, she says words of Tehillim or Psukim from the Torah, and she imagines them surrounding her home to protect her. And like that's what gets her to sleep at night, just like knowing that her words have Tehillim. And so like for me, that was like, that's what Bo'al HaTeva is. Like come into the words, say the words of Tehillim, and have them surround you. Bo'al HaTeva, when you're flooded with everything around you and you're so afraid, protect yourself and surround yourself with the words and have them surround you, right? When my kids try to fall asleep, we tell them like the 4 angels are surrounding you, right? Mimini Michael, Mismoli Gabriel, Milfanai Uriel, Macharai Gabriel, Va'al Roshi Shchinat. You're surrounded by Malachim protecting you, and on top of you is Hashem watching over you. And the only thing that can really get us through these hard times is connecting to Bitachon, connecting to Emunah, right? Tamir Goodman's daughter, who's in the army, sent out this beautiful video that I shared about like what we could do during this hard time, and how it's so instinctual to want to just look into the news, but what we can really do to help the situation is to strengthen our Bitachon to Hashem, because that's the only thing that can really get us through these hard times. So when we can surround ourselves with Emunah and Bitachon, ground ourselves in the Teva, in the words of Tehillim, right? I know that so many women in Zagan have been gathering every single night at Chomi Latinik's house, is right there, and saying words of Tehillim, like the words of the Teva. So Teva means a box, it means the ark, but it also represents the words, the Teva, Bo'al HaTeva. So the Chassidut says, and the Baal Shem Tov teaches, that we should look at Bo'al HaTeva as literally, that when we're looking at, we don't have a flood of waters outside, not yet, right? We had COVID and we have the war, but no. Oh. But what we could do when we're being flooded by whatever is flooding us, whatever is coming over us, whatever is washing over us and threatening to drown us when we feel like we're drowning, is come into the Teva. And the Baal Shem Tov says, look at the word Teva as the words of Torah. ground yourself with Torah, ground yourself with bitachon, ground yourself with the words of Tilim, or the words of bitachon that strengthen our bitachon to Hashem. Learn Shar bitachon. There was only one book that the Rebbe kept on his desk always. His desk was always empty. He was very organized. And the only book that was there that I heard was Shar bitachon from Cholovos Halavavos. And recently they translated it into like English, but also with Pirushim to make it very accessible. And it's a very grounding book to reconnect to our bitachon. The only way we can get through this is through strengthening our bitachon. So yeah, that was like so we have Teva, meaning the ark, meaning the box it. We want to like connect to our breath, and a breath connects us to our neshama to ground us. We have Teva also meaning the words of Tilim, and also the words of Torah, surrounding ourselves, protecting ourselves with Torah, running to the Ori Miklat. Also, when it says you have to run to Ori Miklat when people are chasing, when you feel like you're being chased. Also, over there it says our Miklat, our protection is our Torah. The Torah is what gives us safety. It's what guards us. It's what's kept us safe all times. And it's crazy to see the videos of the Chayalim now on the front lines begging us to learn Torah for them. They're like, what you need to do is learn Torah. We need you to learn Torah for us. There's a tzitzis shortage in Israel. There's a chitas shortage in Israel. There is no tzitzit in Israel. It's crazy. You know how many tzitzit Israel has? You know how many chitas is the book where it's Chumash Tilim Tanya? There's no more left. There's just like a shortage or like bringing in. So it's just amazing to see like the connection that we have to our Torah that anchors us and that grounds us. What? It's amazing, right? And
gave away 100,000.
Who gave 100,000 to Kiki?
I think it's Eli Kaufman.
Wow.
He's on Facebook all the time.
It's so special that like even the Chaylim are fighting the war with physical neshek. The Rebbe said that what we could do at the very least when we're not fighting the war is that strengthen our spiritual neshek. Anyone know what neshek stands for in Chabad? Another acronym, Nerot, Shabbat, Kodesh. So whenever like I grew up, for me that's what neshek meant. We would go do neshek every Friday. Me and my friends, we would go to like supermarkets and give out neshek. I didn't even know that neshek meant weapons. I just thought neshek meant Nerot Shabbos Kodesh. I didn't even know another meaning because that's what we grew up with. So like our neshek, the Rebbe instituted this in times of war. He was like, we have a lot of comparisons between the physical army and Sivos Hashem. If you ever heard of the kids army called Sivos Hashem, the Chabad, like they have ranks and army ranks, and there's so many parallels. Like our tzitzis is our uniform, our lulav is our sword, right? In Torah we have so many parallels. Our kippah is our helmet that protects us spiritually. So the same way we have to physically protect ourselves and be right. Our bulletproof vest, our tzitzis. So the same way we have to obviously physically protect ourselves and strengthen our borders, we also have to strengthen at the same time spiritually, because we're not just a physical person. We're every one of us is made up of body and soul. So we have to strengthen our bodies, become stronger. Join one of Jackie's self-defense strengthening workshops and courses she gives. But even Jackie in her courses knows that if you strengthen your body, it's not enough. Jackie helps you mentally strengthen yourself, because being bodily ready is not enough. We're a person that's made up of body and soul. So we need to strengthen our soul and arm our souls. So like all the metaphors, you know, the mitzvah tanks are called, you know, the Chabad mitzvah tanks, they're called that for a reason. They're tanks because that's how we go out and win the war in the army. Last night I joined a Zoom for a little bit. The A.L. Rosenbaum was giving on fortifying ourselves and building resilience during these turbulent times. She's a psychologist, and something that she shared was that, like, from a psychological non-Jewish point of view, was that the number one thing to do in a time of trauma and crisis is be active in resistance. When you're feeling like you have something you can do, when you're resisting the trauma that's happening, when you're on the resistance end, you have a sense of, I'm doing something, I'm not just helpless. So it was amazing because that's what we live with. Like when something happens to Am Yisrael, we have resistance. We all gather together, right? Everyone is called upon in some way or another to add to the resistance, to fight the war, whether it's the fighting actually on the front line, or supporting those on the front lines, or supporting those who are supporting those on the front lines, supporting the wives of those on the front lines, right? Or it's strengthening them, because we know that our Tzilim has a direct impact. And many people say, like, how does my adding in Chitas is like adding, by the way, after tangent wise, Chitas is this. This is a book that the Chabad like grows up with as well. Like we have words that like are slang. So some of the slang words you guys learned today is neshek, which is like giving out candle. When you say I'm going to do neshek, is to give out stay safe, to give out candles. And Chita stands for Chomesh Tilim Tanya. And we all grow up keeping this in our bedroom, in our car for our protection. Now my husband gave out 300 Karbanachshon to different tanks and Hummers and army tanks around the bases. And we keep it to protect ourselves in our tanks, in our mitzvah tanks, in our homes. And something that we're from 12 years old, we already like start learning the Chumash of the day, the Tehillim of the day, and the Tanya of the day, so that we complete it once a month or once a week or once a year, depending which one it is. And I stopped saying it when I had kids. And this week I decided to recommit because for the merit of the soldiers, I don't know why I just said that tangent, but I recommitted. Maybe like to toot my own horn, I don't remember what's easier. But the way we do that is that the question is that how does my learning chitas help a soldier who's fighting on the front line? But when we realize that it's like how does me strengthening my core, right? How does me working out help my overall health? Because Am Yisrael, when we understand Am Yisrael is one people, we're one nation, we're Aguda Achas, right? We're not separate beings. It's my arm and my other arm help one another. If I strengthen one part of my body, if I heal my brain, my headache, my whole body thanks me and feels better. So because we're one unit, therefore my Tehillim and my increase in chitas, and when you increase in learning or take upon one more mitzvah, that directly impacts the rest of our body, which is the rest of our brothers and sisters who are just extensions of us fighting somewhere else. So when we strengthen our Amun and our B'tachon, that directly impacts all of our brothers and sisters, every single one of them, wherever they are. And it's just crazy to even think about and imagine that we are so interconnected that a Jew on one side of the world saying Tehillim directly impacts, right? And we have stories of people who were in near-death experiences or comas where they said that they felt the words of Tehillim, the Bol Teva, the words of Tehillim direct protecting them during that time of danger, surrounding them and protecting them. But because we're one unit, it's not crazy to imagine that what one part of my body does directly impacts the other part of my body, right? By healing something, we can heal by taking a pill in my mouth, it can directly impact my headache in my brain, right? Because we're all one and connected. So if we're learning, we are directly impacting. So that's what we can do. I think it's so fascinating that psychologists are saying what they're teaching is something that we already have built into our system, that we have this built-in resistance to what's going on outside that fortifies us. Rather than staying at home helpless, being afraid of how, God forbid, we're going to be hurt, we are all on the front lines of the resistance. The children are there on the front line supporting the Chayalim through making all of their campaigns. Our friends in America spoke to Patty Baum yesterday, and she said every single class in their school, every grade is doing another mitzvah campaign to help in Israel. Everyone is on the front lines and everyone is involved in this resistance that helps us build this resilience for the psychological trauma, and it lowers the chances of PTSD tremendously by, number one, just feeling like we're fighting back, we're pushing back, we're building resistance, and that helps us build the resilience. Anyways, so just to summarize, we have the Bol Teva of the words of Torah that protect us, adding in Torah, adding in our learning, adding a shiur. If you can't learn all of Chitas, divide it with your whole family, divide it with friends. Start small. Tiferet was over on Shabbat, right? We learned Chitas together on Shabbos, right? Add in the words of Torah, Bol Teva, that will strengthen your Teva, your arc, right? Building your Teva, building your strength of your armor is what the Torah has always been, what anchors us and what connects us and grounds us. Anything else? Okay, that's for now, that's what I'm going to check out with, and I'm going to start afterwards. Anyone who has to go, I'll start another shiur on the rainbow and the floods and the flood waters and purifying us and the oneness of the water and all of that. But thank you so much, everyone who joined in person, who watched us online. Please share it if you enjoyed it with someone. Consider sponsoring a class, and most importantly, just realize that the number one thing we can do is, rather than focus on banishing the darkness by fighting with the darkness, by attacking, because in the beginning I took that approach. In the beginning I was looking on social media and seeing all of the anti-Semitism and hatred flooding my social media, and I took it upon myself to banish that darkness by one by one reposting what's going on here so the world knows, right? That was my way of attacking the darkness. We're getting up to Hanukkah soon. I'm scared to think. Yeah. That's the Shammai approach we learned. The Shammai approach is to uproot the darkness. But when you try to uproot the darkness, it's impossible because there's just endless darkness. We live in a world of Galus where it's all concealment and all darkness. So if we try answering every troll and every anti-Semite, it's endless. We're never going to answer them. There's billions of them and there's much fewer of us, right? It's like the Hanukkah army. So if I think I'm going to combat anti-Semitism by just reposting the terrors that are going on here and think that anyone's going to care, I would email celebrities last time and ask them to use their voice. I was messaging Maya Bialik last time there was anti-Semitic wave and asking her why she should use her platform, and I felt like I'm combating darkness. But there's a much easier way. And while you are, right, you are banishing the darkness, but it's such a slow process. But a much, much more effective way to banish darkness, we said, is rather than pushing out all the darkness, is just to light one candle. And when we light a candle in a room that's dark, when you turn on the light, the darkness disappears on its own. The darkness has nowhere to go because it's scared of the light. It says when you shine the light, the darkness is banished because it's afraid of the light. It disappears. It runs away from the light. And that's kind of what reminded me when I thought of this. It reminded me of the last war. I think it was the Gulf War. Was that the war where the Egyptians just fled from us, where we had no chance to win the war? But that was a 6-day war. Thank you. I've been reading up a lot of comics for my kids in the war, and they're getting all mixed up about the miracles that happened to us in the previous war. So in the 6-day war, when there was no by fighting, by actually combating the darkness, we had no chance to win. We were completely outnumbered. But like by increasing in our achdus and strengthening our light, it just somehow miraculously they just fled. They ran away from us. It was crazy. It was like literally a like depiction of what it looks like when you shine so much light that the darkness runs away on its own, right? So that's the greater way to combat darkness, is just keep shining our light, which is literally what we've been doing. Am Yisrael has never been brighter, has never been lighter. There's so much light that like people are like all like fighting over opportunities of like how to add light. It's like we're scrambling to add light. There's so much light here that the darkness just has no choice but to run away, right? So rather than having to answer every anti-Semite and push back and show the truth of what's going on here, we just keep showing who we are, showing our achdus, showing the light, and increasing every day. There's so many ways we can increase in light. So I'll give you some ideas to end off today's shiur. One thing is adding in your shiurim of learning, in any way of learning Torah. Add in saying tehillim of words of Torah, increase in learning Torah, increase in mitzvos, right? Improve your mitzvos. The number one campaign, all the 10 mitzvah campaigns and the mitzvah tanks of the Rebbe were about increasing in the fundamental mitzvah. So even though you might already light Shabbos candles early, encourage other people to light Shabbos candles. Lighting Shabbos candles is a direct way to bring actual light into the world, to draw light into the world through literally physical and spiritual light. Increase in tefillin, in getting other people to put on tefillin, in davening, in all of the mitzvahs of the 10 mitzvah campaigns, in Taharas HaMishpacha. If you already keep Taharas HaMishpacha and go to the mikvah, be more careful with Taharas HaMishpacha, be more careful with harchakos, be more careful about going to the mikvah on time, right? Be more careful with with the beauty of Taharas HaMishpacha, with strengthening your marriage and bringing more beauty to your home, and putting a lot of effort into investing in your marriage, investing in your shalom bayis, investing in your home, in checking your mezuzah. These are all the campaigns, by the way, that the Rebbe pushed to people to increase in mitzvahs all during war. So tefillin, mezuzahs, checking mezuzahs, making sure every house is a mezuzah, sponsoring mezuzahs. My sister on campus, they're hanging up mezuzahs in every campus dorm room. They give out hundreds of mezuzahs a year on campus dorm rooms for free, right? Sponsor some of those. Increase in kashrus, right? We all keep kosher, but on different levels. So take upon yourself a little bit more kashrus, right? Be a little bit more careful with kashrus. Take upon yourself a little bit of a higher level of kashrus. Kashrus, Taharas HaMishpacha, neshek. Dora, help me out here. Tefillin, mezuzah, what? Challah, right? The mitzvah of challah. Do the mitzvah of challah. Say the bracha of challah. Have people in mind. Daven for them. I'm sure there's more. Oh, bayis malis farim, buying Jewish books in your home. Limud Torah was one of them. Learning Torah, chinuch, learning with your children. Whenever you do all these things, include your children in it. That's the number one thing we can teach our children, is through example. When we include our children, tell them what they're doing, tell them what we're doing, and ask them if they want to join us or sit with us. I got to do my chitas Noach with my son Tzvi, because I was telling him the parsha. As I was learning chitas, he's like, why do you keep stopping? I'm like, for Rashi. But meanwhile, I was telling him the story of the parsha. So include your children in this. That's chinuch. So take upon one of these things, and if you can't do any, and another way to increase light is by chesed, which is our number one strength as Am Yisrael, which is what we're gomle chesed, that every one of us has so much compassion and love. Just even if we can't do a whole campaign of chesed, check on one person a day and see how they're doing, and let them know that you're thinking of them. Every time somebody messages me to see how I'm doing, it literally feels like a warm relief, a hug of just feeling cared about in this dark and scary time. It takes away a little bit of the scariness, it eases the scariness and the fright just a little bit more each and every time. So check on somebody. If you have extra time, pick up a coffee and bring it to them. Bring a bag of chips to their house, right? Send them a note that you're thinking of them. You made bring them one cookie, whatever it is. Just pick up the phone and call somebody, and do chesed in small ways, in the smallest ways possible. It's not about making a grand thing. It's about the impact on the individual people that need it. Reaching out to those people that you think about those people that probably someone is not reaching out to them, to see how they are. So yeah, let us mostly stop, rather than being sunk in the darkness and reading the news in the darkness. One more thought. I met my friend, another friend in Efrat, who is Michelle Mahler, who's also a psychologist, and she told me, this was one day after it happened, that she shut off social media. She took away her kid's phone, and one thing she said is a lot of us feel like we owe it to the victims to read their stories, to see their faces. And she said that we owe it to them, but the same way like in the Holocaust, we read it years later, not during the trauma. She said we're gonna hear their stories, we're gonna see their faces, but not while we're still in the war, because that is dangerous for your neshama. So if you care about your neshama, you shut yourself off from social media. You don't have to see their faces now. They don't want you to be in trauma now. They want us to be strong for everyone else in Am Yisrael. So she said, don't read the news at all. Focus on adding light. Don't focus on the darkness. Later, when it's calm, when they're going to have a book published about what happened, we're going to learn their stories. We're going to feel for them. We owe it to them later, not right now. Now we owe it to Am Yisrael to be as strong as we could, which is worrying about our neshama, which is worried about increasing light and not being sunk into the darkness and not drowning in the darkness of the pain that's out there. So I'm blessing every one of us. That Hashem should bless us with light, with Yeshua, with refuah, with safety for all of Am Yisrael, that this nightmare should end, that this should be the final step before Mashiach. Can I show everyone your pictures, guys? Jorah made this stunning picture just to bring a little bit more light in the world. It says, Gam ki elach b'geitz al naves lo irara. I love that pasuk from Tehillim. Right, is it Tehillim? Yeah. It's beautiful. Anyone else? Can I show off your pictures? Can I show off your gorgeous heart, Leah?
Rena made a very nice one.
This is stunning. Love the colors. It's beautiful. I love this. Yeah, we could give it to, there's somebody in Zagan who collects the pictures. If you guys leave them, I'll give them to the Chaylim. Every picture, a lot of times they think like they don't want our pictures. They do want our pictures.
They do.
You know how nice, if someone makes me a picture, if one of your kids bring me a picture, it makes my day. Imagine you're on the front lines and you're like starving for like just love and you're seeing so much darkness. Imagine what a picture does for you. Oh, Orly's husband says, what? And he loves the pictures. See, the husbands love the pictures. Who doesn't want a picture? Doesn't have to be from a kid. So yeah, let us just continue doing what we do best, adding in more light, showing our true nature, and we're going to come back safely from this, stronger together. We're going to come out with more light, and we're going to, come on the other side. I love you all. If anybody needs a hug or anything, let me know. Even if you're distant and you need a distant hug. Thanks for joining. So much for the rainbow class.